It's May 2002. A sophomore at a small high school in Ohio is standing near the baseball field when a teammate takes a full swing and the bat slips. It flies directly into his face. The impact crushes his nose, fractures his skull in multiple places, and shatters both eye sockets. He loses consciousness before the ambulance arrives. His brain swells so severely that his body stops breathing on its own. At the hospital in Cincinnati, doctors put him into a medically induced coma. A priest comes to comfort his parents. That boy was James Clear, and he had no idea, lying in that coma, that this was the moment that would eventually lead to one of the most influential books about human behavior ever written. Because what happened in the years after that accident is the real story. The story of a teenager who rebuilt himself, not with one dramatic act of willpower, not with one defining moment of transformation, but with a series of decisions so small they were almost invisible. He started going to bed early. He kept his dorm room clean. He started lifting weights 3 times a week. He wrote articles every Monday and Thursday. None of these things seemed important. None of them felt transformative. But 6 years after being in a coma, James Clear was named the top male athlete at Denison University. He made the ESPN Academic All-America team. He graduated with the university's highest academic honor, not because of talent, not because of a single breakthrough, because of habits, small ones, repeated daily for years. He wrote a book about what he learned, called Atomic Habits, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through every major idea in it. Not the surface version, the real version. Let's begin. In 2003, a man named Dave Brailsford took over as the performance director of British cycling. For the previous 100 years, British cyclists had been essentially irrelevant at the highest levels. They hadn't won a single Tour de France in 110 years. One top bike manufacturer actually refused to sell their equipment to the British team, afraid it would hurt their brand image. Brailsford had a different philosophy. He called it the aggregation of marginal gains. The idea was simple. If you broke down every single thing involved in riding a bicycle and improved each one by just 1%, the improvements would compound into something remarkable. So they started with the obvious stuff: better bike seats, alcohol-rubbed tires for better grip, lighter racing suits, heated overshorts to keep muscle temperature optimal. And then they didn't stop. They tested different massage gels for faster muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach riders the best technique for washing their hands to reduce the chance of catching a cold. They tested different pillows and mattresses for each rider to maximize sleep quality. They even painted the inside of their team truck white so they could spot tiny bits of dust that might affect the performance of their precisely tuned bikes. Hundreds of tiny improvements, each one barely noticeable on its own. Here's the mathematics of this, and it's important. If you get 1% better every single day for 1 year, you will end up 37 times better by the end. 37 times. But here's the uncomfortable flip side. If you get 1% worse every day for a year, you'll decline to nearly 0. The same math works in both directions. The same force that builds champions can quietly destroy you if you let bad habits compound in the other direction. James Clear calls habits the compound interest of self-improvement. Just like money in an account, the effects of your habits multiply over time. They seem insignificant day to day, but look back after 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and the gap between the person who built good habits and the person who didn't is almost incomprehensible. But here's why most people miss this. Here's why it doesn't feel true in the moment. Clear has an image in the book that I think about all the time. Imagine an ice cube sitting on a table. The room is cold, 25 degrees. The temperature begins to rise. 26, 27, 28. The ice cube sits there. Nothing happens. 29, 30, 31. Still nothing. Then 32 degrees. The ice begins to melt. A 1-degree shift. The same as every shift before it. But this one unlocks everything. This, Clear says, is exactly what progress looks like. You put in the work. Nothing seems to happen. You keep going. Nothing seems to happen. You keep going. And then, at some invisible threshold, everything changes. He calls this the Plateau of Latent Potential. All the work you did before the breakthrough wasn't wasted. It was being stored. The ice was still getting colder even though you couldn't see it. Bamboo barely grows for the first 5 years. It's building an underground root system. Then it shoots up 90 feet in 6 weeks. Breakthroughs feel sudden. They never are. And this leads to the idea that the book is really built around. Clear says, forget about goals. Focus on systems. He's not saying goals are useless. He's saying they're overrated. Here's his reasoning. Every athlete in the Olympics wants to win a gold medal. Every person starting a diet wants to lose weight. Every entrepreneur starting a business wants to make money. They all have the same goal. So the goal can't be what separates the successful from the unsuccessful. What separates them is the system, the daily process, the habits that run automatically in the background whether you're motivated or not. And there's another problem with goals that Clear names so precisely I want you to hear it. When you have a messy room and you set a goal to clean it, you clean it for a while. But if you never changed the underlying habits that created the mess, you'll be standing in a new pile of clutter in 2 months, setting the exact same goal. You fixed the result, but you never fixed the system. Clear's most quoted line is this: you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
2 people are offered a cigarette. The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second person says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Same result, completely different psychology. The first person still believes they are a smoker who is fighting against their nature. The second person has already changed who they believe they are. This distinction is the deepest idea in the entire book, and most people skip right past it. Clear describes 3 levels at which change can happen. The first level is changing your outcomes, what you get: losing weight, getting a promotion, writing a book. This is where most people focus all their energy. The second level is changing your process, what you do, your habits, your routines, your systems. The third level, the deepest, most powerful level, is changing your identity, who you believe you are. Most people try to change from the outside in. They set an outcome: I want to get fit. They design a process: I'll go to the gym 3 times a week. But they never update their identity. Deep down, they still see themselves as someone who is not a gym person. And when the alarm goes off at 6 a.m. and it's raining and they're tired, the behavior that wins is always the behavior that aligns with their identity. The person who doesn't see themselves as a gym person, no matter how good their plan is, will find a reason to stay home. So, how do you change your identity? Here's where Clear's idea becomes both simple and profound. Your identity is not something you decide once and have. It's something you accumulate through evidence, one small action at a time. He says every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Every single one. When you write 1 sentence today, you cast a vote for being a writer. When you skip the elevator and take the stairs, you cast a vote for being a healthy person. When you put $20 in your savings account, you cast a vote for being someone who manages money well. These individual votes don't feel like they matter, but they accumulate. And at some point, you have enough votes to change what you believe about yourself. Clear calls this becoming your habits, not having good habits, being the kind of person those habits belong to. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. Once you become the type of person who does the thing, you don't have to fight to maintain the behavior. You're just acting like who you are. And here's the practical starting point he gives you. Ask yourself, who is the type of person that could achieve the result I want? You want to get healthy? Who is a healthy person? Someone who moves their body regularly, who chooses food that gives them energy, who doesn't skip sleep. Now take one tiny action today that person would take. Not the whole transformation, 1 vote, then another tomorrow. Clear had a friend who lost over 100 pounds with one simple question she asked herself every day. What would a healthy person do? Would a healthy person walk or take a taxi? She walked. Would a healthy person order the salad or the burger? She ordered the salad. Every decision filtered through that one question. And slowly, she became the person she was asking herself about. Now we get to the mechanics, the actual operating manual. James Clear's entire practical framework rests on 4 laws of behavior change. Each law corresponds to one stage of the habit loop, the 4-step process that every habit follows. Cue to craving, to response, to reward. The cue is what triggers the habit. The craving is the desire it creates. The response is the behavior itself. The reward is what satisfies the craving and tells the brain to remember this loop for next time. To build a good habit, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. To break a bad habit, make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. Let's go through each law with real examples that you can use today. Law 1. Make it obvious. Clear opens this section with a story I find completely fascinating. If you've ever ridden a train in Japan, you may have noticed something strange. The conductors constantly point at things and call them out. They point at signals and say, "Signal is green." They point at speedometers and call out the exact speed. They point along the platform edge and say, "All clear." It looks almost theatrical, like an elaborate ritual for its own sake. But this system, called pointing and calling, reduces errors by up to 85% and cuts accidents by 30%. Why? Because it forces the automatic to become conscious. You can't miss what you've pointed at and said out loud. This is the essence of Law 1. Before you can change a habit, you have to be aware of it. Clear recommends what he calls a habit scorecard. Write down every single habit in your day from the moment you wake up, then mark each one as positive, negative, or neutral. Not to judge yourself, just to see clearly what's actually happening. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of our habits run on autopilot. We don't realize we reach for our phone the moment we feel bored. We don't notice we always eat more when we're watching television. We're not aware we've been sitting for 3 hours without moving. You can't change a habit you haven't noticed. Once you're aware, Clear gives you 2 powerful strategies. Implementation intentions. Researchers in Britain took 248 people and divided them into 3 groups, all trying to build an exercise habit. Group 1, just track how often you exercise. Group 2, read about the benefits of exercise, then track. Group 3, read about the benefits, then write down, "I will exercise on day, at time, in place." In groups 1 and 2, about 35 to 38% of people exercised at least once that week. In group 3, 91%, more than double from one specific sentence. The format is simple. I will behavior at time in location. Not, I'll try to meditate more. Instead, I will meditate for 10 minutes at 7 a.m. in my kitchen. The specificity makes the abstract real. It transforms a vague intention into a concrete appointment with yourself. Habit stacking. The second strategy is based on a beautifully simple insight. No behavior happens in isolation. Every action is a cue for the next one. You wake up and that triggers making coffee. Coffee triggers checking your phone. Checking your phone triggers getting distracted for 40 minutes. It's a chain, whether you designed it or not. The habit stacking formula lets you design the chain intentionally. After current habit, I will new habit. After I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. After I sit down to eat dinner, I will say one thing I'm grateful for. After I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. You're not fighting against your existing habits, you're using them as launch pads for new ones. The current behavior is the cue, the new behavior rides in behind it. Design your environment. The last piece of Law 1 is the one that might be the most powerful and the most overlooked. An Anne Thorndike researcher at Massachusetts General Hospital wanted to change the eating habits of hospital staff and visitors without saying a word to anyone, without any motivational campaigns or awareness programs. She simply rearranged the cafeteria. She put water bottles next to every food station and in every refrigerator alongside the sodas that were already there. That's it. In the next 3 months, water sales increased by 25.8%. Soda sales dropped by 11.4%. Nobody changed their values, nobody read a label. The water was just suddenly obvious. Clear's principle: you don't have to be the victim of your environment. You can be the architect of it. Want to read more?
Put a book on your pillow every morning so it's waiting for you every night. Want to play more guitar? Put the guitar stand in the middle of the living room, not in a closet. Want to eat healthier? Put the fruit bowl in the center of the counter where you'll see it the moment you walk into the kitchen. Want to exercise in the morning? Sleep in your workout clothes. The cue that's visible gets acted on. The cue that's hidden gets forgotten. Make the good habit the most obvious thing in your environment. Law 2. Make it attractive. An engineering student named Ronan Byrne in Dublin loved watching Netflix. He also needed to exercise more, so he did something clever. He hacked his stationary bike and connected it to his laptop. He wrote a program that would only let Netflix play if he was pedaling above a certain speed. If he slowed down, the show paused. Suddenly, exercise was something he actually looked forward to. This is what Clear calls temptation bundling, pairing a habit you need to do with something you already want to do. Want to catch up on your favorite podcast? Only listen while you're on a walk. Want to read celebrity gossip? Only allow it at the gym. Want to drink your fancy coffee? Only with your morning journal open in front of you. The science behind this is dopamine. Most people think dopamine is about pleasure, that it gets released when something feels good. But researchers have discovered something more interesting. Dopamine is released in anticipation. The spike happens before the reward, not after. This is why the smell of food makes you hungry, why checking your phone is addictive even when there's nothing new on it, why gambling is compulsive even when you rarely win. The anticipation of the reward is often more powerful than the reward itself. When you bundle something you love with something you need, you create that spike of anticipation around the hard habit. The brain starts looking forward to it. There's a second, deeper aspect of Law 2 that Clear explores: the power of your social environment. In the 1960s, a Hungarian man named Laszlo Polgar had a theory. He believed that genius wasn't born, it was trained. He was so convinced that he wrote to a woman named Clara and said he needed a wife willing to test this theory with their own children. Clara agreed. They married. They chose chess as the field. Their 3 daughters, Susan, Sophia, and Judith, were raised in a home where chess was the center of everything. Books about chess everywhere, chess games constantly, the highest praise reserved for chess achievement. By age 4, Susan was defeating adults. By 15, Judith became the world's youngest grandmaster in history, younger than Bobby Fischer. For 27 years, she was the world's #1 female chess player. The daughters reported that they loved their childhood, that chess felt exciting, fun, enjoyable. Not because chess is inherently exciting, because in their environment, chess was what excellence looked like. It was what normal looked like. Clear's insight from this: we imitate the people around us, especially the close, the many, and the powerful. Whatever behavior is normal in your culture is automatically attractive to you. Want to read more? Join a book club. Want to exercise consistently? Find people who treat exercise like brushing their teeth, something that just happens, not something that requires motivation. Want to take your business seriously? Spend time with entrepreneurs who are already where you want to be. Your habits will naturally shift toward the norm of the people around you. Law 3. Make it easy. Twyla Tharp is one of the most celebrated choreographers of the modern era. She has won a MacArthur Genius Grant. She has performed original works on stages around the world for decades, and she credits much of her success to a habit that has nothing to do with dancing. Every morning, she wakes up at 5:30 a.m., puts on her workout clothes, walks outside her Manhattan apartment, and hails a cab to the gym where she trains for 2 hours. But she says the ritual isn't the workout. The ritual is the cab. The moment she tells the driver where to go, she has completed the ritual. Everything after that, the gym, the training, the 2 hours, follows automatically. She doesn't have to decide. She just has to get in the cab. This is the genius of Law 3. Make starting so easy that it can't be avoided. Clear's most practical tool here is the 2-minute rule. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. Read before bed each night becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. Study for the exam becomes open my notes. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes. The goal is not to do 2 minutes of the habit. The goal is to make starting automatic. Because once you've started, you'll almost always continue. The hardest part of any behavior is beginning. A man, Clear knows, wanted to lose weight. He started going to the gym every single day with one rule. He could not stay longer than 5 minutes. Go, do something, leave. 5 minutes maximum. After a few weeks, he started staying longer because he was already there. A few years later, he had lost over 100 pounds. He didn't transform through willpower. He transformed by making the decision to show up so small that he couldn't talk himself out of it. Beyond the 2-minute rule, Law 3 is about reducing friction everywhere. Friction is the invisible force that stops good habits and perpetuates bad ones. The guitar in the closet gets played less than the guitar on a stand in the living room. The gym bag left in the car gets used more than the one upstairs. The healthy food you prepped and put in containers gets eaten more than the healthy food still in the fridge as raw ingredients. You don't need more motivation, you need less friction. And for bad habits, you flip it. Increase the friction. Want to watch less TV? Unplug it after every use and put the remote in a drawer. Want to spend less time on your phone? Leave it in another room until noon. Clear says that when he does this, he gets 3 to 4 uninterrupted hours of focused work every morning, not because he's more disciplined, but because the phone is too far away to reach out of habit. A commitment device is a more extreme version of this. Victor Hugo, the French author, once locked all his clothes in a chest so he had nothing suitable to go outside. With no way to leave his house, he sat at his desk and wrote. He finished The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 weeks early. If you can engineer your environment so that good behavior requires less effort than bad behavior, the good behavior will win, almost automatically. Law 4, make it satisfying. In the late 1990s, a public health worker named Stephen Luby traveled to Karachi, one of the most densely populated cities in the world. He had come to address a health crisis, widespread illness from poor sanitation. He and his team quickly identified the solution: hand washing. People already knew hand washing was important. Almost everyone said it was important, but they weren't doing it consistently. The problem wasn't knowledge, it was consistency. So Luby partnered with Procter & Gamble to supply the neighborhood with Safeguard soap. Not just any soap, a soap that was luxurious by local standards. It foamed beautifully, it smelled wonderful. People actually enjoyed using it. Within months, the rate of diarrhea in children fell by 52%, pneumonia by 48%, a bacterial skin infection called impetigo dropped by 35%. 6 years later, Luby's team returned. Over 95% of households still had hand-washing stations, even though no free soap had been provided for 5 years. One change, one sensory upgrade, a lasting habit that saved lives. The lesson is the fourth and final law. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. The challenge with most good habits is the timing mismatch. The rewards of going to the gym come months from now. The reward of skipping the gym comes right now: comfort, warmth, the couch. The rewards of eating well come years from now. The reward of eating junk food comes in the next 5 minutes. Our brains evolved in environments where immediate rewards mattered most. We're walking around with the same hardware our ancestors had 200,000 years ago, when being alive in the next 5 minutes was more important than being healthy in the next 5 years. So we have to work with our biology. We have to find ways to make the benefits of good habits feel immediate. Clear's practical solution? Habit tracking. The most famous example is Jerry Seinfeld. Seinfeld reportedly uses a wall calendar and a red marker. Every day he writes new material, he draws a red X on that date. The chain of X's grows, and his rule is simply, don't break the chain. That visual progress, the growing streak of red X's, is its own immediate reward. It feels satisfying to mark the X. It feels motivating to see the chain grow, and it feels painful to break it. Clear also introduces a stockbroker named Trent Drysmith, who started each morning with 2 jars on his desk, one full of 120 paperclips, one empty. Every sales call he made, he moved 1 paperclip to the empty jar. The goal was to empty the full jar every single day. Within 18 months, he was bringing in $5 million to his firm. By 24, he was making $75,000 a year. The paperclips made abstract progress, I'm building my sales skills, into something concrete and immediate. Each click of a paperclip was a moment of satisfaction. And then there's the rule that might be the most important practical insight in the entire book. Never miss twice. Not never miss. Missing once is human. Emergencies happen. Bad days happen. Life interrupts. If you try to be perfect, one missed day feels like the whole thing has collapsed and you quit entirely. But never miss twice means you have a rule for what to do when you inevitably fail. The answer is simple. Get back as fast as possible. Clear writes, "The first mistake is never the one that ruins you. It is the spiral of repeated mistakes that follows. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit." Anyone can have a bad workout, a bad week, a bad month. The difference between the people who build lasting habits and the people who don't isn't that the successful people never slip. It's that when they slip, they recover quickly. Show up. Even badly, even for 2 minutes, even when you feel completely not like it. Because a bad workout is infinitely better than a missed one. Not for your fitness, but for your identity, for the story you tell yourself about who you are.
Part 4. The Advanced Principles. Clear spends the final section of the book on what separates people who build habits that last from those who build habits that fall apart after a few weeks. The first principle is what he calls the Goldilocks rule. Humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right at the edge of their current abilities. Not too easy. Boredom kills habits. Not too hard. Frustration kills habits. Just at the outer edge of what you can currently do. He gives the example of playing tennis. If you play a 5-year-old, you win every point and get bored immediately. If you play a Wimbledon champion, you lose every point and get demoralized. But if you play someone who is roughly your level, someone you can beat about half the time, you're completely engaged. This is why the best gym routines add weight gradually, why the best language apps adjust difficulty to your current level, why the best books challenge you without completely losing you. When designing a new habit, make sure it has this Goldilocks quality. Start easy enough to win, hard enough to stay interested. Clear also addresses something most books on habits ignore, the downside of good habits. Once a habit becomes automatic, it also becomes unconscious, and unconscious things don't get better. The professional athlete who has practiced their swing 10,000 times has an automatic swing. But without deliberate reflection and adjustment, the flaws in that swing are also automatic. They've locked in the imperfections along with the technique. This is why Clear says that habits plus deliberate practice is the combination that produces mastery. The habit gets you to the baseline automatically, but regular review and reflection is what improves the baseline over time. He personally does a yearly review where he asks himself 3 questions. What went well this year? What didn't go well? What am I working to improve? And a mid-year integrity check. Am I living by the values I say I have? Are my habits still serving the person I'm trying to become? The systems need maintenance, not constant obsession, but regular, honest reflection. Let me bring you back to James Clear. After the accident, after the coma, after the long, uncertain recovery, he went to college. And he started small. He made his bed every morning. He went to sleep on time when his roommates stayed up. He kept his room clean. He started lifting weights 3 times a week. He published 1 article on his blog every Monday and Thursday. None of these felt like success. They felt like maintenance, like doing the bare minimum of a life that hadn't quite figured itself out yet. But the effects were compounding beneath the surface. The sleep habits improved his focus. The focus improved his grades. The better grades rebuilt his confidence. The confidence gave him permission to train harder. The training gave him the physical edge to compete. The competing taught him what he was capable of. By senior year, he had become the top athlete and top student at his university, not because he found some secret strategy, because he let small habits run long enough to compound into something extraordinary. Clear ends the book with a reflection on what the word atomic really means. It has two definitions. The first, an extremely small amount of a thing, the single irreducible unit of a larger system. The second, the source of immense energy or power. That's what a habit is. Both of those things simultaneously. Small enough to start today, powerful enough to change your life over time. Here's what I want you to take from this video. Not all 20 chapters at once, not a complete life overhaul, just one question. What is one tiny behavior, so small it would feel almost embarrassing to call it a habit, that the person you want to become would do? Would a healthy person walk to the corner today? Would a writer write one sentence tonight? Would a reader read one page before bed? Would a morning person set their alarm for 10 minutes earlier this week? Pick one. Do it today, and then tomorrow. Not because it will transform you, because it will cast a vote, one small vote for the person you're becoming. And eventually, after enough votes, the election is won. The book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It is specific, practical, and one of those rare books that will change what you actually do, not just what you think. If this video gave you one idea worth keeping, share it with someone who needs it. And leave me a comment. What's the one atomic habit you're starting today? I want to know. Take care of yourselves. See you in the next one.